Hey everybody, this is Kane Wagner with Appalachian ADV here on the Appalachian ADV Community Podcast. And today, we got my good buddy James Wright on the podcast with me. How you doing, James?
I'm doing good, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Heck yeah, man. So, real quick, background of James, he's into a lot of things, man. He's got a podcast. He's in a dual sport club. They do an event. He does all kind of stuff. So we're going to talk about a bunch of that things. But before we jump into all of that, I just want to let James sit here and tell us a little background about himself, where he's from, where he's grew up, where he's living now, and what got him into motorcycles.
Yeah, man. I hope we have enough time to dissect all this because it's about 35 years of moto history. So
Heck yeah.
we'll see what happens. But yeah, James Wright. I was actually born in Buchanan, West Virginia, which is kind of the center part of the state. Up until the point I was 4 years old, I lived in a little tiny town called Frametown. Yeah, so my dad was the manager of a custom exhaust shop down in Frametown, and the owner, Jack Rawlison, decided he wanted to open up a shop in Fairmont. So when I was 4 years old, we packed everything up, moved 2 hours north, and I mean, I've pretty much been here for the last 33 years.
Nice. It's a good spot, man. I go past there all the time, heading down into Hatfield and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a pretty area. That's where all my family's from. So
Yeah.
yeah, got a little bit of a taste when I was a kid down in that area of motorcycles and riding. But when we moved up to Fairmont, that's when it all went downhill as far as motorcycles are concerned for me. I was 6 years old. My dad came home from work, and I always would look forward to it, wanted to run out there and meet him. And I
Yeah.
happened to look out the curtains, and I see this old motorcycle in the bed of his Chevrolet pickup truck. So run out, and I'm like, "What is that?" And he's unloading it. And he said, "This is yours. We're gonna start riding." And I was so stoked.
Heck yeah.
And it was a 1975 Suzuki TS75. So this thing was an antique, long before I ever got a hold of it. And but it was fun. It was pretty roached out, and it was an opportunity for me and my old man to kind of bond over something. And we took several weeks and rebuilt it. And
Nice.
I'm 6 years old, figuring out how to do ring gap and put top ends together, and just kind of redo a motorcycle from the ground up. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it was a good time, and really kind of set me on my path for motorcycles for sure.
Yeah, you were in deep right away, man. You're freaking busting knuckles at 6 years old. That's pretty damn good.
Well, I've always kind of grown up as a gearhead. I don't really have a choice. My old man was the same way. So when I was a little kid, my babysitter was a quadrajet carburetor and a turbo 350 Chevrolet transmission. Like, dad was down there always working on something, and he's like, "Hey, here's some tools. Take this apart, figure out how it works, and put it back together." And that's what I did. Got in trouble when I was young for taking apart the family VCR because I wanted to see how it works inside. So I've always been mechanically inclined, and definitely got that from my old man.
Yeah, nothing wrong with tinkering, man. You got to figure out how stuff works sometimes by destroying it.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, so we kind of did the typical thing of just kind of riding around the house, local areas. I started playing baseball when I was in kindergarten and first grade, and met a good friend of mine, and his family had some property just across the town we lived in Barrackville, which is outside of Fairmont. Started kind of doing some woods riding over there, and getting my confidence up. Obviously quickly outgrew the old TS75, and it really wasn't up to snuff. And you know, worked hard and mowed grass and did chores. And eventually, next thing I know, I've got a KX100, which I was way too small to be on. But my old man kind of always subscribed to the idea of buy the bike once and grow into it kind of thing. But
Yeah, there you go.
did a lot of trail riding there with my buddy Justin at his property. Justin actually did a lot of motocross racing, and it's one of those deals. It was like by osmosis. I see him do it, and I want to do it too. So talked the old man into letting me start doing a little bit of racing. There was a motocross track just south of Clarksburg, right off I-79, called Pyramid Valley. For the majority of my life, that's where we spent every Saturday, was at the motocross track.
Yeah.
And I can think back. Those are some of the best memories I had. Just doing the track life. I play a little bit of sports here and there, but motorcycles have pretty much been my main activity from the time I was a little kid. And it was kind of funny. My dad, he grew up and do a little racing and riding as a kid, nothing, to the extent of what we did, but he used the fact of me kind of getting out of sight and not being able to see where I was going as an excuse to buy him a motorcycle and get back into it. So he bought one. Well, my sister, she turned 5, 6 years old, and she decided she wanted to do it too. So got her a bike. And at 32 years old, my mom was tired of sitting in the pits and watching us have a good time. So we got her a bike, an XR200. And I'm telling you, very quickly, all four of us were out there racing. So
Awesome.
it's always been a family affair for us.
I mean, I can't think of a better way to spend family time than at a freaking track on a motorcycle. That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, man, it was motorcycles were the glue that kept the family together. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Motocross was fun, but it started to get to the point where, you're spending 16, 17 hours of your Saturday at a track, and the only thing you get to do is a 10-minute practice and two 10-minute motos. So
Yeah.
30 minutes for an entire day of riding kind of was, the benefit wasn't there, we saw.
Yeah.
So a lot of, moto family and friends that we met at the racetrack, they were also doing some local cross country and hare scramble racing. So they talked us into coming and doing that, and then it was game over from there. I don't think we ever went and did another motocross after that. Just,
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those deals where, when the only practice we got in motocross was at the track. We didn't have anywhere else to jump or anything like that. So all of our riding was in the woods. So it
Yeah.
was just a natural transition into doing the cross country stuff, because that's the type of riding that we're doing anyway. So
Right.
yeah, it was cool. I think I was probably 9 or 10 years old when we started doing the cross country and hare scramble stuff, and kind of coming up through the ranks and learning how to do a long endurance style event. It was
Yeah.
even the kids races at that time were over an hour. So that was a little bit different. But at the end of the day, kind of come up through the ranks and won a couple of championships. I was always pretty consistent in the kids classes of winning my class and getting top 5 overall. And to my sister's credit, she was the same way. I would say honestly, out of all four of us, she was probably the most driven and like hardcore when it came to racing. I really believe if she would have been able to stick with it, she would have really been somewhere.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty amazing, man. It's nothing like being in the woods. I think I've only been on a track, maybe once or twice. It's interesting, but for me growing up in the woods, not necessarily on a motorcycle, but like mountain biking and all that outdoor stuff, like there's just something about being in the woods when you're on a motorcycle. Just the echoing of the engine and dodging trees and
oh
hopping
dude,
over logs, like it's just something about it, man.
yeah, it's a medicine. It can heal you, especially if you're going through stuff. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, so that was an interesting dynamic though, having all four of us out there racing at one time, especially when me and my sister got old enough to do the adult class. So it was interesting to I can remember multiple times of putting the kickstand down on my bike and getting off, and I'm going back through the rows wishing my dad good luck, wishing my sister good luck, my mom and my sister raced the women's class, so they're racing against each other. So that was a funny, kind of interesting situation where
Yeah.
they were you know mother and daughter off the track, but man, when you get on the starting line, it's elbows and kicking and everything else coming into the first turn. So that was pretty interesting. But
Competition brings it out, man.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we kind of did the local scene. There was I think 3 or 4 different series that we did. Paul Kuntz Mega Series, Kenny Sinclair's, and some others. They were all pretty much based up here in North Central West Virginia. There was a couple rounds that went into Ohio. I can think of like Reno, the motocross track that's over there. They
Yeah.
did some racing there, and then we kind of transitioned from that into the GNCCs and doing the national scene. I think that was around 2004.
Yeah.
And dude, I'm telling you, from that point on, we didn't take family vacations. It was where was the next race at. We loaded up our old '84 Chevy conversion van we called Old Blue with the box trailer full of bikes, and our vacation was, hey, round 7 at Unadilla at New York is this weekend. We're headed there. So it was never like a traditional week-long beach vacation. It was,
Yeah.
13 rounds of GNCC racing and whatever else we wanted to go ride. So, but dude,
That's
that was some of my favorite memories by far is just those road trips, 8, 10, sometimes 14 hours away
yeah.
to go ride and race together. And the ride home was also one of my favorite parts. You get to bench race with your family and talk about how each other's rides and races went and how did you attack that uphill and downhill, what line did you take there. So it was
Yeah.
awesome growing up and being able to experience that.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Super unique that, your whole family's out there racing and it's a shared experience. Even though you're racing individually, it's still a nice shared experience and being able to help each other out. You're talking things over and you're coaching each other out. I think that's a interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. In 2007, I think was our best year as a family, collectively. We all ended up getting top 5 for the end of the year in our class at the nationals, and
Nice.
so the banquet night goes on, and we're getting our awards and whatnot, and it's kind of wrapping up the end of the show, and I'll never forget the one promoter, Jason Wygant, gets up there and he says, "Oh, we got one last award that we want to give out. It's a new award this year. It's called the Badass Award. It goes for, a group or team or an individual that was the most badass all year." And I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. And he said, "This year goes to the Wright family." And I'm like, what? So we got this little tiny, like glass trophy over at my dad's exhaust shop there. It says Wright Family Badass Award 2007. So all of us finishing in the top, 5 of our class was the only ones to ever do that. So that was really special too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What a
Yeah.
thing, man. What a thing to be able to share as a family too. That's freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, but you grow up and you start getting responsibilities and stuff, and yeah, the chase of the $5 plaque kind of loses its luster eventually. The injuries start piling up too. I know 2006, we were down at the Big Buck GNCC, which was the 3rd round down in South Carolina, and I had a pretty bad get off. I'd
Hmm.
hit this stump and went flying off the handlebars, and my foot caught a tree, and I kept going forward. My foot stayed behind me, and it kind of just tore everything up in my knee. I tore all 3 ligaments and broke my kneecap, and
Yeah.
I was done for the year at that point. And back in '06 was when they were still kind of on the fringes of the meatball knee surgeries, so I didn't have like the nice scopes that they can do and
Uh,
replace the stuff quickly like that. So that was a huge setback for me as far as like my speed in racing and whatnot. I kind of come back in '07, but it took half the year for me to get back to where I was before the injury happened. And it was kind of a weird time in my life too. I was a senior in high school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and is racing what I wanted to try to pursue, or get a college degree. And I chose the college route, went to WVU for 2 years and majored in beer pong and quickly flunked out. And I always did kind of wonder what would have happened if I kind of would have stuck with racing. But
yeah.
from that point on, it was responsibilities and just trying to find my place in the world, honestly. But never did kind of give it up completely. I always made it a point, even in those times, to at least do some of the bigger, closer GNCCs like Mountaintop and Snowshoe. Snowshoe was
Yeah.
always my go-to race. That was the nastiest, roughest, worst one, and that's what I thrived in. If it rained a week before the race, good. I was excited. I was tickled to death about it because I know everybody else was not going to be on their game and didn't want to be there, and I thrived in it. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of stuck with me, especially in the dual sport side of things, because I'm an idiot and I like all the hard stuff, and I like taking dual sports and adventure bikes where they shouldn't be at all. And
Yeah.
that's kind of been my MO for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good disease to have, I think. Just picking up the momentum and trying to challenge yourself more and more. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, no, nothing at all.
Yeah. So
But
one of the many things you have going on before we jump further into that motorcycle thing, you have a YouTube channel called Wright Cycleworks.
hmm
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel?
yeah, so it kind of started out as a way for me to vlog some different things. I think it was like 7 years ago at this point I started that. And it's kind of funny, you know, I've always been the guy that likes weird oddball stuff, whether it's vehicles, motorcycles, anything different. That's what I love and what I like to pursue. So I was scrolling YouTube one day, and I come across this guy that took a CBR 600 crotch rocket and made it into a dirt bike. And it just, that checked all the boxes for me. I'm like, this thing's awesome. I want to do this. I think I can do this, given the background of, being a gearhead, being a mechanical guy, having access to my dad's shop, with grinders, welders, like we can make this happen. And he was fully on board. The old man was at that point too. So I start scouring, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and we find an old CBR 600 that was wrecked and got it for next to nothing. I had some of the suspension parts I needed and some of the other things to make it into a dirt bike. So the YouTube channel started out as a way to document that build, honestly. I did get it put together and rode it maybe 4 or 5 times and quickly realized that I was going to die if I tried to continue to ride this thing in the woods. And I mean, hell, it was still street legal. I had the blinkers and everything on it. That was going to be my first dual sport. So
right.
Shows you how nuts I am. But it was interesting though. People on YouTube liked it, and that's what kind of got the ball rolling on the channel. And I use the channel as just a way to kind of document stuff like that. And I did give racing one last hoorah back in 2022, and kind of dedicated myself to trying to get a championship at the local level.
Yeah.
So, 2022, I filmed all of the races that I was able to do. Unfortunately, Mountain State Hare Scramble Series was getting so popular. They were trying to do all of their races in one day, and the poor four-wheeler people at the end of the day, they were racing in the dark just because of all the headaches and troubles they were having trying to wrangle that together. So about 3/4 of the way through the season, they decided to go to a 2-day format, and do motorcycles on Saturday, which is a little different. A lot of race series around here do motorcycles on Sunday.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was low man on the totem pole in seniority at my job, so there was no way I was getting Saturdays off. So I ended up not being able to finish out the year, but did a lot of cool YouTube videos of that race series. And I'd say the one thing that really took my channel off was the Chinese motorcycle reviews. Like I said, I like oddball, cool, different things, and there was nothing out there on the internet about the SSR 450s. So I found one local here. The guy was pretty much giving it away. I bought it, kind of fixed it up a little bit, figured out what it was based on and what it took to make it, a better machine. And that's what really blew the channel up was the Chinese motorcycle reviews. So kind of went from that to the GPX 450s, and that was another huge success on the channel. But it's kind of funny that's what got me most of my subscribers and all my views, but that really wasn't what I was passionate about. I like doing the dual sport riding and doing the vlogging, that type of stuff. And it was like I'd put a ride review video up of the GPX and it would have 45,000 views within a couple of days. And the video, I took my time and really put love and care into editing of us going on a dual sport ride, had like 10 views in maybe a year. It's like, okay.
Yeah, that whole YouTube thing, it's interesting. I think some people can figure out like how to make things work for what they like doing, but it's a tough cookie to crack, I think.
Yeah, you've got to be able to crack that algorithm sometimes. And I know for me, like if the YouTube side of things was the most critical, important part of what I wanted to do, I'd definitely have to shift over to the Chinese stuff. That seemed to be what was clicking and getting all the views for me. But that's not what I'm passionate about. I'm more passionate about doing the dual sport riding and kind of the podcast side of things too. So that's what's important to me on the channel.
Yeah, that's perfect segue, because that's the next thing I was wanting to talk about, because your Tallboys and Trackmasters podcast, you had me on there and it was a blast, man. I had a great time. But for people that don't know, like that can be found on YouTube, but you also have it in different places as well. But it's shot live. Like you are one of the only people that I know of that is doing an actual live show consistently on a specific day at a specific time. So why don't you give us like the lowdown on your Tallboys and Trackmasters?
Yeah, so that started out as honestly a way for me and my co-host Trevor to kick the wintertime blues and just talk about motorcycles. Yeah, I've been part of a lot of different kind of off-roading clubs and stuff throughout my life, and I've been drawn to the people that are, super intelligent and highly fixated on whatever the hobby is. We just people like that I've just hit it off with immediately, and Trevor was no different. I'll tell you a quick little funny story about Trevor. So we were putting together a dual sport ride to go from Fairmont to Canaan Valley and see Blackwater Falls in that area.
Yeah.
And by this point, we gotten our route down pat so well that we hit maybe 5 miles of asphalt the entire way down there. So we're at our normal meeting spot, which is a Hardee's over here in Whitehall, Fairmont. And we're sitting there and waiting on a couple other guys. And I just happened to look over at the intersection, and here's a guy on a KLX 250 that looks brand new, and he's pulling up to the red light. And we're looking at him, and a couple other guys I'm with are like, "Hey, is that somebody we're waiting on?" I'm like, "No, I don't know who that guy is,"
Yeah.
And he's kind of bebopping around, just not really paying attention. And he happens to kind of look over and do a double take where he sees, 30 dual sport and adventure bikes over here, and he kind of registers with him. I see him turn his blinker on, and he pulls in to meet up with us and introduces himself. And he's like, "What are you guys doing?" And we're like, "Wow, we're going on a big dual sport ride today, clear to Canaan Valley and back, and not hitting a whole bunch of asphalt." And he was so pumped. He's like, "Man, I would love to do that, but I'm actually headed on the way to meet my fiance for coffee, who's Shiloh, his wife now."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, that's cool, man. Here's my contact info. Here's our Facebook group and whatnot. Get with us, and we'll go ride another time." And he's like, "Ah, man, yeah, that sounds good. I'd really like to go today." So he pulls away, and I see him go over to the gas station, and he stops, and I see him get his phone out. And within like 45 seconds, he's back. He's like, "I postponed the date. I'm gonna go ride with you guys." So that was my introduction to Trevor, and it's been all downhill for him since then. But thankful for his wife Shiloh for letting him skip a coffee date to hang out with us and eventually become the co-host of the show with me. But
yeah, look what that led to, man. Chance encounter leads to something like this,
Yeah. But the show, I don't think I had any idea of where it would end up at that point. We're going on our third year now.
Yeah.
We've got some awesome sponsors that kind of help foot the bill of our streaming services and some other things that we do. But we just did our 79th episode last night, and it's been a journey, and it's been something that I've been really proud of and awesome to be a part of. I've met so many great people like yourself. The interview side of things is probably one of my favorite things that we get to do. We've met so many different awesome people, all walks of life, all backgrounds.
Yeah.
The butt head ratio of people I've tried to talk to get on the show has been minimal. 99.99% of the people we ask come on, and they're awesome, gracious, and love to hear their stories. But yeah, the live aspect of it, I think, gives us a little different approach and something that's unique. It's not scripted, and it's genuine. We have some technical difficulties once in a while, and that's what Trevor likes to call us, tall boys and technical difficulties. But it's been fun. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. We've got a whole slate of stuff lined up for this year that'll be fun. And it's people ask a lot though. They're like, "How do you come up with that name, Tallboys and Trackmasters?" And me and Trevor are constantly sending memes and different things to each other all day long. And he sent me this clip, and I can't remember what Supercross race it was, but these guys were up there thanking their sponsors, and the sponsor list was ridiculous. Like they mentioned more of their sponsors than they did talking about the race and stuff, and we just kind of thought that was funny. Like one guy, he might as well have mentioned Charmin toilet paper for helping keep his butt clean out there, But he asked me, he said, "Well, what would your sponsors been, back in your racing days?" And I said, "Yeah, Tall Boy beer and Kenda Trackmaster tires, because I couldn't afford anything else at the time." So that was kind of our kind of inside joke that took a life of its own was, who would you think? Yeah, Tallboys and Trackmasters. We changed the Trackmaster side of things a little bit so we wouldn't get in trouble, but that's where the name come from, and it kind of stuck.
Yeah, it's awesome name, man. And like just the fact that you guys do it live, I feel it's such a unique thing. And I had done a couple interviews in the past, and it's usually, pre-recorded, just like we're doing right now with me and you. So, it's a little less, it's still intense, I feel like, being on the other side of it when somebody's interviewing, it is intense because your mind's going a million miles a minute. But when you shove you on a live show, it's so different. And I somehow felt slightly calmer. And I think really mostly because of you two, really, because you've been doing it for a while now. You have it down to a science. Like you had all these things queued up, like little graphics, and like it's such a well-run thing that I felt really comfortable with it, even though I'm really not great at live talking kind of
Yeah.
a thing. But you guys did such a great job with it that you just made me feel really comfortable.
I think that's the key, especially on the interview side for us is making the person feel comfortable and, trying to give you the aspect that you're not live. It's just us three talking about motorcycles. And I think when you kind of get over that initial hurdle of, introductions and figuring out what the person's about, whenever you're just sitting there talking bikes, like it just flows out of you. And
Yeah.
I think that's been true of, the majority of our interview guests. We haven't really had anybody that was like Ricky Bobby up on the finish line with his hands up, like car ran good, didn't know what to talk about. But yeah, it's been fun. And whenever we first started, we kind of did kind of a look around, and at least in West Virginia in our area, there really wasn't anything like what we were thinking about doing. And honestly, it kind of started out as just a way for us to talk to the Fairmont Dual Sport Rider group. That was our main demographic. And, we kind of spread out from there, and people realized, or I assume that people thought it was a decent idea and like listen to us ramble on about motorcycles. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future, but the sponsors pay the bills that we have for it now. It sustains itself, and it's going to continue.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's great that you get, buy-in from, because I think your sponsors pretty much are all local companies around you, right?
Yeah. It's some local bike shops and businesses. Heather Wilson from High Gear Success
Right. Yeah.
hopped on. A couple suspension shops local. We try to highlight people that want to showcase us, and we'll help them out with a little bit of advertising. And I try to get that out of the way before the show even starts. I don't like shows that maybe they talk for a little bit and then there's a 40-second sponsor segment in the middle of it. Like I want to kind of get that out of the way to start with.
Yeah, when they throw the commercials in the middle, it kind of breaks it up for sure.
Yeah, it'd be hard for us, I think, doing it live like that too. Like, we'll be right back. Like, what are you doing? You just behind a blank screen sitting there? Okay.
I think you could just like hold up an exhaust in the camera.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You guys do really great exhaust, and then pull it back down and keep talking.
Yeah,
that might be funny.
My dad was cracking up at that. He didn't know I was going to throw his business on there. Like our first couple times we were doing the sponsor, he's sitting there watching. He's like, "What?" That was kind of funny. He said, "Do I need some royalties from this or what?" I said, "Being your son doesn't count, I think." So.
That's right. So something I wanted to bring up, as we're talking about Tallboys and Trackmasters, was you had a chance to go kind of behind the scenes at the AIM Expo this year.
Yeah.
So I was hoping that you'd be able to tell us a little bit about that experience and like how it came to be, maybe, and then what it was like while you were there and who you kind of talked to while you were there too.
I never really thought the podcast would get to that kind of level. So I think it was Trevor actually sent me an Instagram post from Dealer News and AIM Expo themselves, and they kind of opened up the opportunity to apply for a media pass. And I kind of told him, I was like, dude, they're not going to pick a random hillbilly West Virginia podcast that talks about dual sports. Like, that's not who they want to see there for media coverage. And he kind of pushed me. He was like, what's it going to hurt to apply? So, all right, whatever. I kind of went through the whole gamut there of filling out the information, and it was kind of funny. Like they had a portion on there where you had to post a link to your content, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be a quick no. This guy's going to open up this YouTube video and see these two guys drinking beer and talking about motorcycles. Like, that's game over at that point, especially the name of the podcast too. And I was like, all right. So I applied, and I think it was within like 3 or 4 days later, I got this email back. And it said, expect a phone call from a Las Vegas phone number. And I'm like, well, they're probably calling to tell us no, and thanks for applying. But it was a couple hours later, I seen the Las Vegas area code. I answered. The guy talked to me. He said, hey, man, we reviewed your guys' content. We like what you do. we really haven't had that many people from West Virginia, so we'd love to have you come do some media with us there. And
Nice.
I was kind of shocked that happened, but it was kind of the last minute situation. I had to start getting flights together and getting a game plan of where I was going to stay, what I was going to do. And luckily, my wife was nice enough to watch all three of our children for a couple of days while her husband went to Vegas. Um, I kind of had a mindset of what I thought the show was going to be like going into it, and it was different than what I thought was going to happen. The major brands that were there, and obviously, we talk about industry news and stuff on the show, but I go there expecting, KTM's going to have the new 390 Adventure R there. Kawasaki's going to have something about the new two-stroke bike there. They're going to have, I know they had a middleweight adventure bike that they haven't released yet, and I thought, well, maybe that AIM Expo is going to be where they're going to reveal that.
Yeah.
But that really wasn't the case, and I had to kind of take a step back and realize that AIM Expo is pretty much marketed for dealers, and these big, well-known companies are pretty well already established at these dealerships. So the smaller guys like Moto Morini, Royal Enfield, those are the guys that went all out at the AIM Expo because they're not in all those dealerships. So they're trying to get the foothold and get their foot in the door of these new dealerships. So my initial thoughts had to be changed a little bit, but it was still awesome. I got to see the new DRZ 4S from Suzuki up close. Some of the Royal Enfield 450, I got to throw a leg over that, and everybody was awesome. You could come up and talk to anybody you wanted to at any of the booths. They didn't care if you sat on the bikes and kind of gave them a feel. And I was there for 2 days, and I tried to hit all the major manufacturers the first day, and the second day I kind of went around and found all of the parts manufacturers and maybe some of the people that you walk down through the show booth and you look and they got a lot of cool products there, but no one's talking to them. And that was the people that I was drawn to. Like, hey, what do you got here? What's going on? And met some awesome people, some great contacts. Actually, got to do a good bit of networking for some future episodes, which was kind of my end goal at the end of the day, and showcase what AIM Expo had to offer. But it was a fun 2 days at the show. Now my travel there and back was awful. I had to keep looking around to make sure Ashton Kutcher wasn't behind me with a camera and I was being punked the entire time. But it was a unique experience, and I wish that we had something like that on the East Coast. I know AIM used to be on the East Coast, and I feel for people like you and me and others out there that are in this space, like we kind of crave something like that to go see on that scale. Yeah. So I would love for somebody or maybe AIM themselves to step up and have something here on the East Coast cool like that for us to go see.
Yeah, that'd be nice. I know for a minute they had them in Columbus for a minute, and then I remember the old Progressive International Motorcycle shows. They were kind of like a traveling one, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of those kind of faded away when COVID hit, and you haven't really seen them come back, unfortunately. Yeah,
and I get it. COVID was good and bad for the motorcycle market. There was nothing else to do, so you got a lot of new people into the sport. They were buying bikes and getting out there. But yeah, some of the big events like that also took a bad hit. So
yeah, for sure.
But it was cool. I know next year they said they're moving it to Anaheim, California, and I doubt I see myself going back again next year for that unless circumstances change a little bit. But it was cool. It was a new experience and something I was glad to be able to highlight on the show.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. It kind of opens up some other opportunities then. You have that potential to do that at maybe not the AIM Expo, but maybe like an overland event or something like that.
I know Overland East over in Virginia actually has like a motorcycle village and they have some stuff there. Yeah, I know Trevor and I have talked about potentially going there this year. That'd be cool. And I'm also a big Jeep guy and off-road guy, so that kind of tickles my fancy as well. So if I can combine both of those, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So something else I saw you had up and coming for Tallboys and Trackmasters, the West Virginia Motorsports and Adventure Travel Day. And I think that's the thing, West Virginia is my neighbor. I'm from Ohio. I've done a ton of riding down in West Virginia. I love it down there. But I've always felt like West Virginia had a pretty strong adventure tourism bug, I think, even in the government. And I think it's due to, people like you guys that are out there fighting the fight and out there riding, and your club's involved in some stuff. So if you can, like, I know that it's still upcoming, I think in a couple of weeks, but if you know a little bit of the history of that event maybe, and tell us what you're thinking and what you're going to do while you're there.
Yeah, so that whole thing was started by a group that was put together called the Country Roads Coalition. Their mission was to fight a lot of the gate closures and some of the bad legislation that was coming and affecting, multiple disciplines of adventure travel. I think a lot of the local clubs, if it was dual sport, Jeep, what have you, they were good at doing that by themselves, but the Country Roads Coalition gave an opportunity for everybody to combine our resources and be one voice against anything like that. So our club, Fairmont Dual Sport Riders, I kind of added us to that fray. At one time, I was the district representative for District 13 in the CRC. So I was able to use my dual sport skills and stuff as a way to find some of these illegal gates that we had open. There was, I don't know how many times we'd be riding somewhere and be like, man, this road's fun, but there's a gate across it at the end of the thing. And you're like, that would be awesome to connect 4 or 5 other roads that we have together. You could do something cool with it. And the CRC and Jerry Bain, who was instrumental in starting that, and Senator Mark Maynard, who, he's Mark Maynard's awesome. I can't think of another person in the government that's more passionate about off-road, and he is our voice in the state of West Virginia. I really wish that we had more people like him. He's out there enjoying the outdoors and these county roads and stuff along with us. So him and Jerry were instrumental in getting this thing kind of off the ground. My good buddy Brian Holmes, with IADV, he was kind of their mapping guru, and was able to put some resources together and kind of get the DOH's county road map updated, and that gave us a resource to check the legality of some of these closures and stuff. And wouldn't you be surprised that 99% of the gates that we found across these roads were illegal? They shouldn't be there. They were illegal road blockages, and we were pretty successful in getting a lot of those taken down, and some of these new areas opened up. The Adventure Travel Day and Motorsports Day thing was a way for us to come together, showcase that adventure travel is a huge economic opportunity in the state of West Virginia, and our voices matter. So it's been something that's been fun. It's kind of grown and the last couple of years. Last year was the first year we were able to go there and do the podcast live in the Capitol Rotunda, which was kind of nerve-wracking, honestly, especially being a live show. It was interesting, but I'm friends with so many of those awesome people in that space that they were able to come on and talk a little bit here and there, and we've got a whole list of awesome people lined up for the end of March, and looking forward to it. It's something cool, different, and at the same time kind of representing Fairmont Dual Sport Riders as a voice on the dual sport and adventure side of things too.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing, especially helpful that you had a politician actually that is interested in that adventure tourism segment, and just the fact that you guys, all these individual groups are able to come all together and have that voice. And like I said before, I think West Virginia is a step above when it comes to adventure tourism than some of its neighbors. And my hope is that, here in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky, like that, you guys are leading the way. And I know there's people in all those other states that are starting to do those types of things more and more. But the more we can gain access to good riding, the better, because then people aren't going to go out bushwhacking and going doing things they're not supposed to do because they have other opportunities where they don't need to. When you start blocking off access, that's when the bad stuff starts happening. Like people just want to ride, and if you don't give them a place to do that, they're going to find something.
Yeah, I think Appalachia itself is such a hidden gem when it comes to any type of adventure tourism. There might be the stigma of, it's a rundown, displaced area, somewhere you don't want to be, but you meet some of the best people you'll ever come across in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm very biased being in West Virginia, but I think that we're one of the best riding areas on the East Coast or east of Mississippi. being able to find all these old areas and see some of the history, you'll go down an old road and find an old railroad loadout or an old mining camp, and that side of things has always been fascinated me, being able to get in those areas and see that stuff. And yeah, West Virginia's been very fortunate to have a group of dedicated people that all have that common goal of wanting to see, tourism and riding areas open up and that sort of thing. And I'm proud to be a part of that as well.
So you mentioned a few times we kind of talked about your club you're in, the Fairmont Dual Sport Riders. So I thought maybe be a good time to talk about that, like kind of maybe a little background about them, and then we can go into the 3 or 4 Detour event that's coming up. Talk about it a little bit too.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I got out of racing. I still rode once in a while, but yeah, I was looking for something new and something different. And my dad and a lot of the guys that I grew up riding with and his buddies, meeting at the races and whatnot, they had all kind of transitioned into dual sport riding. My dad was really persistent. He was like, "You need to come try this. I think you'd have a good time." And I'm like, "Nah, I don't think that's for me. That's what you old slow fat guys do when you can't hack it on the track anymore. I wouldn't be interested in something like that." And he kept pushing and kept pushing, and I was like, I just don't think I would have a good time doing that. But I'll never forget it. It was 2016. It was towards the end of the year. It was like late October. Dad's going on a ride with our other good buddy Tom King, and Tom's son Jason had a XR 650L, and he couldn't go that day. He was working, and Dad's like, "Hey, Jason said you can ride his 650L. Like, you ought to come with us today. I'm begging you. You're going to have a good time." And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm still hesitant about it, not putting up the walls, not wanting to do that. But my wife was the one like, go with your dad, go ride with your dad. How many times do you get to ride with your old man anymore? I'm like, yeah, you're right. So
there you go.
Begrudgingly, I met him and hopped on the 650L. Within 35 minutes, I was so mad at myself for not giving that a chance. In that day, I saw more of my home state of West Virginia than I had in almost 30 years of living.
Yeah.
And I just kicked myself at the opportunities that I missed for not doing that. But
yeah,
Dad and Tom and those guys knew the guys in Fairmont Dual Sport Riders, which was the local dual sport and adventure club. And then, it turns out once I kind of come into the fray and got to know these guys, I grew up racing with all these guys too.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys that were the key people that started FDSR were some of the fastest guys that I'd raced with. So
yeah,
we gelled immediately. Fairmont Dual Sport Riders is definitely more on the hardcore side of dual sport riding, which I absolutely love, coming from that racing background. It was started by Nick Hall back in 2013 or 14, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's still the president of the club today. And it's kind of a ragtag motley crew of former racers and idiots on motorcycles like myself, and and also a good mix of beginner people that we try to take in and show the ropes. And I think now we are probably the biggest dual sport and adventure club in the state of West Virginia.
Really?
And some of my best times of my life on a motorcycle have definitely been on dual sport with these guys. And it honestly, at that time when I came in, it was more of just a loose Facebook group. And it was like, hey, if you see us at the east side of McDonald's here in town on a Saturday or Sunday morning, we're going riding, just, hop in with us. And,
yeah,
I was fortunate enough that they let me in, and I kind of took my skills of, I used to be the northern chairman of the West Virginia Jeep Club. So I was used to doing organized events and big rides and things of that nature. And we were able to kind of take FDSR where it is today, being a little bit more organized and being a little bit more visible. Those guys are family, man. They really are. And I've got a lot of cool ideas and events and stuff that I like to try to put together and do, and I can count on those guys to back me up and want to do some dumb stuff. So
yeah, I see you guys throw out a lot of different little rides here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And they all sound very crazy, and you got to have a little screws loose to kind of go out and ride it. But I know you have coming up, the big one, I think, for your year is kind of that 3 or 4 Detour event. And that is coming up this summer.
Mm-hmm.
You guys invited me down to help out with doing maybe a riding clinic on Friday. I just talked to my buddy Tom, who's going to come down to help me out. about that a little bit again yesterday. But if you could, let's talk about the 304 Detour. Like, tell people kind of about that event, kind of how you started it, and what you're expecting this coming year.
Yeah, the 304 is kind of almost like the podcast. It started out small, and you're like, this ain't going to go anywhere, and it's kind of morphed into its own huge process, I guess you'd say. But yeah, so being with the FDSR guys, I think it was around 2018. We started to, I don't want to say get bored of our riding area, but we wanted to go see new stuff. And the best way I feel to go experience a new area is to find a dual sport event to do. So there was one we did at the beginning of 2018. It was the Stolen Pig Rally, which was in the southern part of West Virginia. Don McCoy and McCoy's Pig Farm. Went down there, and I'd rode Hatfield, McCoy, and stuff in the past, but doing it from a dual sport and that side of thing was really fun and exciting. And unfortunately, Don had a massive heart attack and it's not doing very good health wise. So that 2018 was the last year that they did that event.
Yeah.
We did the Flint Ridge Dual Sport Ride, which was another great one in Ohio there outside of Zanesville. And then towards the end of 2019, me and Fred and Nick and some other guys had went down and done the Shenandoah 500 down in Virginia. And, Washington area trail riders, and Andy's a good friend, great event that those guys do. But we came back from that, kind of thinking, we like this vibe, this group of bringing people together from all over the country for a common event and ride. Like we dig this. This is cool. What if we did that in our area? I feel like we had enough cool trails and different places to go ride and see that maybe we could put on an event. So 2020, that I think it was January or February, we kind of get together and we're like, hey, yeah, let's do this. This will be cool. And, we kind of looked at other events in the area and tried to get the dates to mesh up and be a weekend when nothing else was going on. And I think the first iteration was like April or May. It was sometime in the earlier spring like that. But we had all of our ducks in a row and had the flyer out and kind of had a pretty decent following and people saying that they were going to come, and then lo and behold, COVID happens. So that pretty well canceled it, because in the state of West Virginia, at least during the height of COVID, you weren't allowed to have gatherings of more than like 100 people. And the facility that we rented to base camp out of, they were the ones that pretty much called us and told us, hey, we can't let you rent the facility, these new COVID stipulations and whatnot. And I'll be completely honest with you, at that point we're like, well, this is not meant to be. So it's a pipe dream is something we're not going to do. But that summer, we got a phone call back from the place that we'd rented, and they said, hey, we're hearing some of these regulations are going to start rolling back a little bit, and they're going to be allowing outdoor gatherings of over 100 people. And we have this date here. If you guys would be interested in still doing your event, we'd be more than welcome to have you back. And, they were kind of hurting for money with having to cancel all of their bookings and stuff. So they offered it back to us at a discounted price, and we're like, let's do this. We still got everything lined up to do that, and the routes and what have you. So we went into it very naive, and the fact that West Virginia was one of the few states kind of rolling back those regulations and allowing us to have our event was definitely in our favor, because a lot of other dual sport events were canceled in 2020. So everybody that wanted something to do showed up to our ride, and we were very quickly overwhelmed. I think we had the expectation of maybe like 50 to 75 people show up the first year, and I think we had almost 200 people. Like, we did not have the means, the facility, or the staff to accommodate that many people. We got through it, but we were all stressed to the gills. And
I would imagine.
Yeah, that was 2020. 2021, come and we decided, hey, this many people are going to come ride with us. We need to go all out. So rented a bigger facility, made it a 2-day event, had a band, had food, just made it a whole extravaganza. And I think we had maybe like 48 people show up. So you went from one extreme to the other, and you're like, we were really frustrated with that. I mean, it's not about the money to me. It's more about the experience and showing people a good time. But man, in everything that you put into it just kind of falls on its face. It's pretty defeating. The worst part about it, I thought, the whole weekend was the band that we had Saturday night. They're playing on stage, the amazing band. It's Malin Kisner and his guys. They're friends of ours, and they're up there absolutely rocking the place out, and there's like 7 people in the stands watching them because everybody else that showed up was tired and they're back at camp. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like this isn't what we need to be trying to pursue. But Nick and I and Fred Miller, who's another absolute key piece in making the 304 go, decided to give it another shot our 3rd year there, and we toned everything down and went back to a 1-day event. And then, of course, everybody and their brother showed up the 3rd year when we weren't expecting it. But the last 2 years, we've got our facility where it needs to be. It's close to the track. It accommodates everybody that shows up. You learn through trials and tribulations of putting on an event about what works and what doesn't. And I'm way less stressed now than I used to be about putting this thing together. So looking forward to it. 3rd weekend in July, that's typically when we do our event. We limit it to 125 riders, although a lot of times it ends up being about 150 or so. But I think we offer something different than a lot of other people do. Our route, we do Saturday what we call the hard loop, or I guess we're going to change the nomenclature there a little bit this year. That's more the enduro loop. That gives the people opportunity to, I think it's like 100. It usually ends up being about 125 miles. We run through a lot of private property that no one else is allowed to ride any other time of the year. So that's what I think gives us a little bit of an advantage. We still do a lot of county roads to connect those sections together. And you know as well as anybody else that when I say county road in the state of West Virginia, that probably means a rough trail. So, But we try to give something for the hardcore guys on Saturday. And it's morphed over the years. It's went from guys coming on basically Japanese 650s to street legal 2-strokes now is pretty well the majority that comes on Saturday. And then Sunday's easy loop, or what we're going to call the adventure loop now, that's what gives the everyday guy that just wants to come and see a new area and not be stressed to the gills like the crucible that the hard loop is. That's what Sunday's loop is for. And it's awesome. A bunch of cool old back roads, and you get to see a lot of cool sights. And so far so good. It hasn't kind of faded away like a lot of other events have, or aged out. I've got a great crew of guys that continue to want to get together and do this. Nick Hall, Fred Miller. And one of the other cool things I feel about our event is the hardcore guys that kept coming back have become family, and they're part of the staff now. So I think Chad Johnson, Trevor, AJ, just the list goes on. And it's rewarding. It's really rewarding.
It's a fun part about putting on events is, especially when you're kind of building a community around the event. And then if you go to other events or you have multiple events, you start seeing them around a bunch, and then it's your motorcycle family basically. And I think with your event, I didn't have a chance to come last year because I had a clinic, I think that same weekend. But after talking to you guys, and I tried to make sure I had my opening so that I can come down there and actually check this event out, because it is unique that you're going to basically ride something that you can't ride any other time of the year, and multiple things too. And then from talking to you and Trevor, like that hardcore day, it's pretty freaking hardcore. So I'm very interested to see how that pans out for me.
We're excited to have you on board this year and come down and do a clinic for us. That I try every year to add something new and give people a reason to come early. So definitely looking forward to that. But my definition of dual sport, and I think a lot of the guys in FDSR, is probably way different than anyone else. So Saturday's hard loop, like that's what we ride. That's our slice of cake, so to speak. That's what tickles us, what gets us out of bed and gets us on the bike. And a lot of people, I think, coming into it, and the returning clientele, they know what to expect. But when you get the new people showing up and maybe they have an idea of what hard dual sporting is, and they do our event, it's a little bit different. So it's cool. And I think us maybe changing the nomenclature a little bit from hard to enduro may stifle some of the questions that we always get. Like the biggest one I always get is, how hard is the hard loop? I'm like, well, what's your skill level? What kind of bike are you riding? If you're riding a Beta X trainer, it's going to be easy for you. If you're like some guys that came last year, and I hate to keep using them as an example, but you're showing up on KTM 890s to do this event, you're going to have a bad time. So
Yeah, that's funny. I can't remember who it was, and I don't remember which one of my events it was, but I was sitting talking with people at one of my events, and we started talking about the 304, and that person that was talking about it was like, "Oh, I just went. It's my first year last year." He's like, "Those guys are freaking crazy." He's like, "I went and did that hard loop on Saturday. He just was like beside himself. It was freaking hilarious to hear him telling the story, and it just piqued my interest so much that I just can't wait to get down there. Like, because I'm gonna do basically what we talked about was I'll come down Friday. We'll do like a clinic on Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday I'm just gonna head out with you guys and do some riding. And people that do the clinic, maybe we go out kind of as a semi group or whatever. But I'm super interested in getting down there. I haven't actually ridden in that particular area that I can remember, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to it as well. Yeah, we're trying to tweak a couple little different things. You can't please everybody, and I think if you're a person that does an event, if you go into that mindset that you have to please everybody that shows up, you're just going to stress yourself out, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So we try to make 75% of the people happy. If we do that, we've done our job. I know last year Nick had the new logo for the 304 Detour, and it literally said around the logo, it said FDSR 304 Detour. If you're not happy, we're not happy. So that's kind of the mindset for Saturday's loop. I know that we are also going to do a couple little bit different things of, like, we have guys that show up and yeah, it's a challenge for them, but they want even more challenge. Like their appetite's been wet, and I mean, we're talking like legit hard enduro style things. So
Yeah.
some of these private property sections we run through, they have places like that. So we're going to give that as an opportunity this year. Like, you'll have maybe a different colored arrow, and that's going to be a straight hero section. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not a two-stroke guy or, a light dual sport guy, don't even try to go down in there. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to sweep ride and dig your Tenere out of there, type of thing. So
Oh yeah. Yeah. Your hardcore options are gonna have hardcore options off of them, man.
yes, yeah, that's the gist of it there. So you have to be a glutton for punishment if you want to do Saturday's hard loop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that as a rider, you don't grow if you don't challenge yourself.
Yeah.
So our event is a way to gauge where you're at, and I think more often than not, a lot of dual sport guys are masochists, so they like to get tortured sometimes, and our event is a way to do that. And then yeah, maybe you didn't get through the entire thing, but you get back to camp and tell your buddies, like, what the heck did we just try to do here? I hope Sunday's not this bad, and then they can kind of relax a little bit on Sunday.
I think the big thing for a lot of people, especially if you're a newer rider, is maybe your group of a handful of guys, you're the all-star, but you're really not hitting this technical stuff. It's technical for you, but everybody else is having a hard time. And then you go out with a group like your guys's, and then you really see what hard is. It really gives you a better idea of where you're at and maybe what you need to do to get better.
That's a great point. Most of our core riding group was like that. They got new guys that showed up, and I'll be honest with you, you either kept coming back and getting better, or you decided you didn't want to do it anymore. And which is fine. I don't have anything against anybody that likes to do, easier things, so to speak. But those guys that kept coming back and keep coming out to do events and different rides and routes with us, those are the core guys that they're the ones on speed dial I'm going to call whenever something comes up that I want to go try to do. And I'm extremely lucky and fortunate to have all those people.
Well, awesome, James, man. Like, I super appreciate your support. You guys, had me on your podcast last year, and I got you signed up for the Fools Ride this year too. So it'll be your first taste of the Fools, and then I get a chance to get my first taste of the 304 Detour with you. So I'm really looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, same here. I was able to do a little Jeep riding up in Wellsville in that area. So the entire time I was in that thing, I was like, I want to come back up here on my motorcycle and run this. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the Fools Rally. I know a lot of the FDSR guys that I ride with, they're signed up to come up as well. And yeah, dude, really, really looking forward to it. And I appreciate your support. Appreciate you having me on the show. It's been fun, and looking forward to what comes our way here the rest of the year.